The opinions and statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
You are listening to In the Know with David O. Informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio on 860 AM WWDB. And now, your host, Philadelphia Councilman David O.
Good afternoon. This is David O. Thank you for joining me again for another show here at In the Know with David O. at WWDB 860 AM. Today, I'm going to bring you two interviews. The first with Professor Linda Darling Hammond. I interviewed her a little while back, but the topic is so important. It's all about public education and ensuring that every child has the opportunity for a good quality education, and she is one of our foremost experts. She's a professor at Stanford University, and I'm going to introduce her for you, but I think that we'll be coming back to this topic again and again. Now, after that, stay tuned, because then we'll be talking to Michal Smith, the executive director of Cradles to Crayons, a wonderful nonprofit that provides things they need to succeed. Everything from cradles to crayons.
My friends, this is Joe Kraus. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and you know I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness, on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today, or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
And now I'm very excited to have with us someone that I have met and greatly admire, Dr. and Professor Linda Darling Hammond. She's one of America and the world's foremost experts on public education. She's a professor at Stanford University School of Education, where she directs the Stanford Center for Opportunity Policy. She has advised school leaders, policymakers at the local, state, and federal levels, and has worked with countless schools and districts. From 1994 to 2001, she was executive director of the National Commission on Teaching and America's Future, whose 1996 report, What Matters Most, Teaching for America's Future led to sweeping policy changes. In 2008, she was advisor to President Obama and led his education policy transition team. She began her career as a public school teacher in Pennsylvania and has co-founded a preschool and daycare center as well as a public high school. Dr. Darling Hammond received her bachelor's magna cum laude from Yale University, her doctorate in education in urban education with highest distinction from Temple University, and she holds honorary degrees from 14 universities in the United States and abroad, and has received numerous awards for her contributions to research, policy, and practice. Dr. Hammond, thank you very much for joining us.
Delighted to be here.
Fantastic. Now, I will tell our listeners that the reason I met you is you were so kind to come to Philadelphia to testify about best practices in education here in Philadelphia in 2013.
Yes, that was quite an interesting session, and it's a time when Philadelphia really should be and should increasingly be reaching out to find those best practices, and it was wonderful that you and others organized those sessions to begin that process.
Well, thank you very much. I will say that I'm frustrated. As a elected official, we've had experts like yourself. We've heard your testimony. We've looked at your research. I think the answers are out there, and yet I don't think we've made progress. In fact, since the time you were here, I can't say that Philadelphia has improved. There has been some improvement in particular schools, but overall we are moving away from the direction of improving education for everyone. And one of the things that is most troubling is the issue of equality or equity for students throughout Philadelphia. And let me ask you this. I mean, it seems to me that one of the problems that we have here in Philadelphia and perhaps in America is that our education system is divided ultimately almost on a socioeconomic basis. And so people who are well off, their kids are doing fine. And even in our public schools, we have some great public schools, and the parents and the students are doing well. And as long as they're doing well, especially competing for limited dollars, they figure that that's the end of the fight. Their kids are doing well. It's not really my concern about other kids. But in school districts around the world and here in the United States that are doing very well, do you think that there is an overall opinion among the leaders and among the people, the voters, the parents, the students, that my child doing well and your child doing well is what makes our community and our society excel?
I think that there's still in the United States a feeling among many people that I need to get my child moved ahead and I don't need to worry about your child. And we do need a much more inclusive understanding of the fact that the society only works when all children are well educated. And partly that's because our world has changed so much. It's a knowledge-based society now. The people who can get jobs and move forward are well educated. And there aren't jobs in the United States for people who are poorly educated, as there were when I grew up. You could go down to the steel mill or the factory and, have very little education, get a good job on the assembly line, make money, raise a family, buy a house. You can't do that anymore. There were something like 11 million new jobs created in recent years, of which only 80,000 of those jobs could be done with a high school education or less.
So it's a big change.
So the new jobs require education, and if people don't get educated, and then that means they can't get a job, and that means they end up in the welfare or the prison system. We, as taxpayers, pay more for those individuals in those systems. It costs in California $50,000 to have somebody in jail when we wouldn't pay $10,000 a few years earlier to make sure they got a good education, so they would be able to engage the economy. So for every one of us, my Social Security, your health care, depends on every single young person being well educated, getting a good job, paying taxes, and being part of the productive society.
Are there examples of countries or states or school districts where they have turned around their education system based on exactly what you just said?
Yes, there are. It's typical in the highest achieving countries around the world. And there are many of them that serve a very diverse student population, that they fund schools equally, and then they add money for the students who have greater needs of various kinds. They may be immigrant students or students who live in poverty or have particular learning needs. And then they use the money to hire the best people as teachers, make sure that they're well prepared, invest in their capacity to do the job well, recruit proactively from the best of those individuals to become school leaders in the system, and then they use what we know from research about the best ways to teach, the best kinds of curriculum, and make sure that everyone has the capacity to use that knowledge. So you can see that in Singapore, you can see it in Finland, you can see it in many of the provinces in Canada. You can see it in states like Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, that have taken on these kinds of school reforms and really pushed their achievements far forward.
Yes, and we're able to measure their success, are we not?
Yes, we are. We have a national assessment that is taken by students on a sample basis every so often, and we can watch and see which states are performing at the top of the distribution and which ones are moving forward and what their policies have been.
And we can also measure failure.
Well, unfortunately so. And I want to add to my comments the fact that what has happened in the United States in recent years, too, is the growth of child poverty.
Yes.
So we have more low-income children in the United States proportionately than any other industrialized country in the world. About 1 out of 4 children nationally lives in poverty. In Philadelphia, I'm quite sure it's a large majority of students, as it is in many, many cities around the country. And that also means that our schools have to pick up these issues of making sure kids can get access to health care, to making sure that they're fed, making sure that they can deal with all of the disruptions that come from families being evicted and struggling, with employment. And so our schools do have greater burdens, which is why it's very important to fund schools so that those working with the children with the greatest needs are getting more money to do that, to be sure that they can really enable kids to be ready to learn every day, as well as having great instruction when they are fed and healthy and ready to learn.
Yes, and the issue of poverty is particularly important in the United States of America because our school districts are not uniformly funded. There's no federal standard. Each school district is funded through mostly property taxes, not in every state, but mostly that's how it's done. And so in the U.S., in America, if you are from a poor community, you have less resources in your public school, and if you're from a wealthier community, you have better resources. And how is that in comparison with what these successful school districts are doing here and around the world?
Yeah, that is one of our biggest problems. It's a huge problem in Pennsylvania. In fact, I wrote my dissertation at Temple University some years ago on the problems with the Pennsylvania school funding system, and those problems are still existing. Basically, in the United States, the best funded districts spend as much as $40,000 per child.
Wow.
And the worst funded districts spend, $4,000 or $5,000 a child. Really huge disparity. And even within a given state, you can see a difference of 2 or 3 to 1 between high and low spending districts. Just go out to Lower Merion, and you'll see, the difference between two districts close in when you look at Philadelphia. It makes a huge difference. The places that are succeeding have allocated more money to each child who has greater needs. So in California, for example, and this is also true in Massachusetts, there's a weighted student funding formula. Every child who is in poverty, who is an English learner, who is a foster care child, gets more money per child in the funding formula. And then the districts that serve concentrations of those children get more money as well to be sure that they can meet those children's needs. And ultimately, that's what you see in the highest performing countries and increasingly in the highest performing states.
Yes, the importance of properly and adequately funding and investing in education of young people is so critically important. But is that the only thing that will make a difference for America's schools?
Well, once you have the resources in place, you have to spend them wisely. So
yes.
You have to have a thoughtful governance structure. I know that's something you're working hard on right now.
Yes.
Where the decisions about how to spend the money are informed by what we know about best practices. You need definitely, as I mentioned earlier, to hire and support excellent, well-prepared teachers and school leaders because they're right there with the kids figuring out what teaching techniques to use, what curriculum is going to work, and so on. In these days, you probably also need to support something like community schools where you put the wraparound services, the health clinics, the social workers right there in the school so that families and children can deal with the things that they need to survive and then have brain power left for education.
Right.
And then we also need to be moving our curriculum and assessment systems today towards the higher order 21st century skills that are used in current high-tech jobs and so on, which means students have to be.
Can you expound?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you expound on that for our listeners? In other words, what is the higher order thinking skills, and how is that revealed in, for example, the tests that are given internationally versus the multiple choice tests that are given in the United States?
Well, that's a really good point. Basically, in the olden days, we didn't need a lot of people to be able to manage new ideas and information and invent new things. We've always had some number of people doing those things, but many people were asked to work on routine jobs in the factory, on the farm, kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Often the education system was sort of rote memorization, learn to read and then memorize these facts and sit them back on the test. We did have evolved to multiple choice testing. We're alone in the world in emphasizing multiple choice testing where you just find one answer that's already provided to you out of 5 choices and do that over and over again. What that does is get people to try to memorize the right answer or figure out, what somebody else is saying is the right answer, how to choose between them. In fact, right now, if you go to a place like Google and want to get hired,
right.
What they're going to do is not ask you for your test scores because they've actually found that the test scores don't predict people's ability to do this new high-tech work in teams, inventing and vetting products and moving knowledge forward because knowledge is growing very rapidly. So they look to figure out what's your learning ability. They'll put you in a situation. They'll ask you to find information yourself, weigh and balance it, work with others, develop a solution, test it out, revise your solution. And this is what we call higher order thinking skills, where you are able to think critically and problem solve and find information and figure things out and put it together and create new ideas and new products. And that we used to reserve for kids in like the gifted and talented program or the honors program or the advanced placement courses, which we would only give to a small number of children. We now need virtually all children to be prepared in that way because that's what current jobs require. The extent to which computers are automating any kind of routine activity is very, very rapid. So people are needed to do the problem solving. And that's what we have to educate them to do.
And we have seen great success in various school districts where they have dramatically increased their test scores. They have dramatically increased accessibility to good quality education to everyone in their society, including the very poor. And as a result, their economies have really grown.
Yes. In fact, there's a very strong correlation between economic growth and education today. The more people are well educated in these ways, the more the economy expands, the more businesses want to come and settle there because they know they can keep the kind of workforce that they will need for the kind of work that they're doing today.
Let me ask you this question. Looking at some of the test results, it seems that the majority of students in America that are white students, for example, are pretty much on par with their test results in comparison to, for example, European nations. But particularly once we look at African American and Hispanic students, their test scores are so poor that the overall test scores in the United States go to the bottom tier. Is it possibly the fact that since the majority of the students and being that the majority of our country is racially Caucasian, that since they're doing pretty much okay, that there is not a great sense of urgency that, you know, if my kids are doing okay, why am I going to be concerned about the African American and Hispanic kids? So there isn't a major push in our nation to reform education so it is equitable and accessible on a more uniform basis.
That's a good question. What would it take to get people really mobilized and worried about the kinds of reforms we need to make? I do think there is growing awareness, and you characterize the situation reasonably well in the sense that students who are middle and upper class, and that often correlates with race, so often white, and some Asian students are doing much better and on a par. And the place where we fail most severely are in schools where more than 75% of kids live in poverty. If you look at the reading achievement across the world, we're actually in schools with fewer than 10% of kids in poverty, which is the norm in other countries because we don't allow children to live in poverty. We're number one in the world in reading. Even in schools with up to 25% of kids living in poverty, we're number 3 in the world in reading, right behind Singapore and Finland. But when you get to schools with 75% or more of children living in poverty, which European nations don't even have schools like that because they have very strong social welfare programs for children, that's where you see this huge drop-off in performance. And we've got to get people to understand the importance of investing in those schools and really bringing the best quality teaching, the best quality curriculum, the best quality support to the kids who need it the most. And that's I think it's partly helping people understand how our mutual interests converge in ensuring that every young person can come out and be a contributor to the common good, which public schools exist to provide.
Yes, I've tried to explain this. My layman's way of explaining it to folks is, if you had 10 children and 5 of them were amazingly successful, Grammy Award winners, Nobel Prize winners, just fantastic, successful, happy, children of yours. But 5 were miserable failures, locked up doing life in prison, all kinds of drug addiction and those type of things. You take the 10 children and you measure your success and your happiness as a parent. I mean, our schools, which just arbitrarily based on where you live, provide great opportunities and opportunities in vocations and music and art and sports and all kinds of counseling and support in one geographic location, and for other children, just because where they live, they don't get any of those. And we don't know that this child who is being denied all these opportunities is the next Einstein or Beethoven. So we as a community lose, and especially when other school districts in other competing nations or states are educating all 10 children. And I hope that can make it clear, for people in Philadelphia. So I do have another question, and it might be a question that you have for me, but I'm going to put it in this terms. Why can't we solve this problem? It seems like we have all the data, we know what the issues are, we know what succeeds, and yet we are not improving our education. It seems like we are losing ground.
Well, we've had a set of public policies in the United States for actually a couple of decades now that tend not to prioritize investments in public education. And in most states, investments in the corrections system have skyrocketed. Nationally, we've had about quadrupled the amount of money we're spending on the prison system, while in most places, public education has been pretty much holding stagnant. So we have to persuade people, that we're better off spending our money to help kids get literate and productive so they don't end up in prison, because there's a strong correlation. Most people in the corrections system are high school dropouts. Most are functionally illiterate, rather than, waiting and paying much higher amounts of money for corrections and incarceration. And those are a set of public policies that have to be looked at together. I think the other thing is that, the public often is very interested in improving education. We also need politicians who are really willing to look at the ways that could be done equitably and do that based on a set of moral principles as well as self-interest, rather than the traditional "I've got mine, you get yours" game that has been widespread in the way we've thought about education.
Yeah, when I look at Philadelphia, for example, what I cannot understand is we have great schools, great public schools, and great neighborhood schools. We do, and we've always had them. We have great magnet schools. We have some great charter schools too. But we also have some persistently underperforming, bottom-of-the-barrel schools, and they have been that way for decades. And we have not been able to solve that problem, but I just wonder, why can't we, as a city, as a city council and the mayor and our state elected officials and our school district, why can't we start with the 10 most underfunded, most problematic schools, elementary, high school, where there's maybe no parents, high crime, lack of resources, and in those schools, there are not the best teachers, perhaps not the best administrators. There aren't the resources. There aren't the counselors. Why can't we focus on those schools? Because by bringing those schools up, providing more class time, more technology, more resources, we would be able to lift that bottom without adversely affecting those good performing schools. And it's not like we have to address every school in Philadelphia, but we have to address the bottom performing schools and begin to bring those up, and they need a lot of additional investment. But it would be, I think, very impactful for our schools and for education and addressing the issues that you pointed out, socioeconomic and race-oriented, that would actually show that Philadelphia schools are producing well-qualified students and addressing the very expensive problems that result from failures and lack of education and lack of hope.
Yes, and Philadelphia has done this before. And I think that it is really important to demonstrate that it can be done in the places where the needs are the greatest. There was a movement a few superintendents ago to have smaller academies within the big high schools. Some of those were very successful at reducing the dropout rates, improving achievement rates. Some of them had themes and investments in particular approaches that were very motivating and attractive for people to send their students. And I think that kind of thing can be replicated. You need strong leadership in the school district with less turnover of superintendents to get a reform that will stick and where people know they're going to be supported over time. A lot of teachers will rightly say, well, this too shall pass, because when you have so much turnover in the district, people are being told, well, stop doing this now, start doing that. We've changed our, approach or whatever. And that makes it very hard to do the kind of serious work that you're talking about. And then you need strong leaders in those schools who are knowledgeable and expert about how to do the work to create a new vision, a new way of working. And across the country, we've seen many examples, and we've seen some in Philadelphia as well, of success with that strategy. And ultimately, you get a virtuous circle of success breeding more success if you can make those investments in the right way.
Well, our time is up. Thank you so very much for coming on air with me and talking about these issues. And I appreciate your work and wish you the best in having impact here in America. And I'll do my best here in Philadelphia to ensure that our kids get a great opportunity for a great education.
I appreciate what you're doing there. It's a heavy lift, but you've got the right energy and the right approach. Thank you.
All right. You have a great day.
Bye-bye.
My friends, this is Joe Krause. You've heard me on Philadelphia radio now for over 20 years, and I don't often endorse products or people unless they are real game changers. I want to tell you about Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located in Center City, Philadelphia. And at the end of this short personal endorsement, I want you to consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness. If you are recovering from an injury, if you or a family member has been diagnosed with a disorder that has stopped you in your tracks, or if you're like me, determined to learn about wellness while getting yourself prepared to stay healthy so you can enjoy the blessings of your family. Remember the name of this warm and caring location, Weinerman Pain and Wellness. Why should you consider Weinerman Pain and Wellness? Because they are who you expect them to be. Weinerman Pain and Wellness, on the web at WeinermanPainandWellness.com.
Weinerman Pain and Wellness, located at 100 South Broad Street, just south of City Hall. Call Weinerman Pain and Wellness at 215-988-9503. That's 215-988-9503. Call today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Philly Labor RX Injured Workers Pharmacy Network, featuring PPC Pharmacy, First Choice Pharmacy, and Precision Scripts, providing injured workers with premium products and services from the point of injury through the entire healing process. The Philly Labor RX Pharmacy Network cares about injured workers.
At any given moment, somewhere in America, a baby is taking a first step, a developmental milestone. But for too many parents, a baby's first steps aren't just a milestone. They're a miracle. These are the parents of babies who were born prematurely or with birth defects. It's a crisis affecting more than 500,000 babies in the United States each year. You can help them by joining volunteers like you who walk in March for Babies. The money you raise funds research and local programs that help babies overcome the challenges of premature birth and birth defects. Together, our steps make stronger, healthier babies a reality for thousands of families. Sign up today at marchforbabies.org to take the steps that help make milestones and even miracles possible. Who will you march for?
Introducing the YMCA. What, you already know the why? Or so you think. Sure, you know the why for a swim, a workout, even a game of hoops. But did you know we're more than that? We're a cause. When you take your jump shot at the why, someone else is getting job training. Take a cardio class, while kids are in an after-school enrichment program. Practice your downward-facing dog as a teen practices her leadership skills. That's the why. We work with people no matter their age, income, or background and give them the opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive, all with one simple goal in mind, to strengthen our community. And we've got so much more that does just that. So while you might think of the Y as that place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. Introducing the Y. We're so much more than a place. We're a cause. Visit ymca.net/.
Are you thinking about getting your GED diploma? Well, here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a number of pep talks that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You know that feeling? People look at you and don't believe in you.
You want some gentle encouragement.
Then you're on your way to your GED diploma and a better life.
But I know you're probably just a little bit nervous. You can find it in yourself to take that first step.
You can improve your future. You can do this. I know you can.
You need to start pushing yourself.
Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need to get your GED diploma, we've got a pep talk that's right for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and find free GED classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Do you let other people order for you at a restaurant?
He'll have the saumon lyonnaise.
No, I won't. Or pick the movie you're going to see?
She'd like a ticket to Attack on Rage Mountain.
Really?
Yeah, come on. So why would you let others make all the important decisions about how your life is going to be when you get older? I mean, is it okay with you if your kids decide where you're going to live?
My kids? Are you out?
Are you kidding?
Or perfect strangers choose who will be taking care of you?
Not gonna happen.
No,
Better visit longtermcare.gov, the trusted information site that helps you find your own path forward without selling you anything. It takes you step by step through everything you need to consider about aging and all your options. Longtermcare.gov. Stay in charge by planning now or pay later.
How about a mohawk? How about a mohawk? How about I put my foot right... Oh, hi, honey.
All right, and we're back. Thank you very much. I mean, listen, I know for some people that's not like the happiest thing to listen to, but, sometimes we've got to deal with science and technology and economics. And listen, education, particularly our public school system, that is so important. I try to talk about it in general, but I'm a Philadelphia councilman, so particularly I do deal with Philadelphia, but I do care about our suburbs and our region overall. One of the things that has happened is the way that our schools work here in Pennsylvania is it's not based on whether you go to school in Philadelphia or you go to school in Montgomery County, Bucks County, Delaware County, Chester County. There's a school district, and they're different in the counties. We happen to have one big school district in Philadelphia, but believe me, the schools in the different parts of our city are as different as different school districts in our counties, and our city overall, 1.5 million people, but we are the poorest of the 10 largest cities in America. And so in a school district, in a democracy where we all pay our taxes the same, you would think that the schools would provide the same basic good quality resources and education. And I will always say, as I did during that interview with Professor Linda Darling Hammond, that we may look at each individual player on the football team in terms of how well they're trained and what kind of resources they have and whether they get a chance to excel, but you still got to field your team against the other team, and that's where we're losing. And that's why it does matter that other people's children are given good opportunities and the opportunity to excel, because we win together and we lose together. Well, listen, having said that, that is a great intro to my next guest because she's solving that very issue, or at least being part of the solution, in a organization, a nonprofit, which is called Cradles to Crayons. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant when I first heard that. I'm like, is that cradles to crayons? They take you from birth to when you're playing with crayons. But no, what it really means is they do whatever is needed. They provide whatever is required from cradles to crayons, everything in between and beyond, and they do it to ensure that every child has a good opportunity when those opportunities are lacking. So let's welcome our guest, Michal Smith. Hello, how are you?
Great. Thank you, David, for inviting me here. So pleased to be here. And I wish truly that we were providing the solution. We're a little bit along the way, but we're not actually providing the total solution yet.
Yes, it's a big problem, but you are certainly part of the solution and a great part in the sense it's a wonderful cause. And why don't you tell our listeners how this even got started?
Yes, Cradles to Crayons started in Boston in 2002 and then came to Philadelphia in 2007. And as you've already highlighted, sadly, Philadelphia is, of the 10 large cities, one of the poorest.
Yes.
Has the highest rate of deep poverty in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's looking at a family of 4 who have to live on about $11,000 a year.
Yes.
And that, as anyone would know, is going to be a tough call. So what we do is we provide basic essentials, everyday essentials that a child between the age of 0 to 12 might need. So it might be diapers, it might be a pack and play, it might be a stroller. And as children get older, it's books, toys, school supplies, so that children have all those basic essentials that they need. But the model's more complicated than that. The second part of the model is that we occupy a warehouse in West Conshohocken, which we call our giving factory.
Okay.
And there we collect gently used or nearly new items for children aged 0 to 12.
Yes.
And then using over 2,000 volunteers a month from the community, we engage them in sorting and packing those items for the children that we serve. And we don't serve the children directly. We work through a raft of human services agencies. And as your previous speaker alluded to and you spoke to, the community schools in Philadelphia. So we insert ourselves into systems where children are already being served with either financial support or perhaps domestic violence support or education.
Yes.
And the social workers or teachers or counselors can order online from us and get a custom package 2 to 3 days later with everything that child needs.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so we know if the child's got large feet or if they're reading above grade or below grade or whether they like Spider-Man. And the pack is customized for them. So it's not like just getting a pair of sneakers from somewhere, which is also nice.
Yes.
But this is customized so that the child gets exactly what they need. And so the families feel really great that the mom or the caregiver can give that child the things that they want or need.
And that's why I'm telling our listeners this is really a part of the solution, because for kids who may not have, folks that are employed or who may be facing a lot of financial challenges or health issues, those type of things, here's an organization where if people knew about it, they could actually make a request and receive in a few days a custom packet of the things that they need, the essential things that will really help them and encourage them. And I can't say enough about the encouragement, because people need hope and they need to be uplifted in order to try to continue and to achieve success. How is all this funded, by the way?
We're funded entirely privately. Our budget this year is about $1.7 million.
Yes.
And through that, we will help over 70,000 children this year.
Wow.
So that's an approximate cost of about $33 per child. And what that means is that we are doing a great return on that money that people invest with us.
Yes.
Because a package that we give out to a child is worth about $100 to $150, but we're doing it for only $33. And basically 90 cents of every dollar that anyone contributes to us goes directly to doing that.
Yeah, and that's so important. There's so many times where we read about an organization, they're wonderful, and then you find out that 90 cents of every dollar goes to administration, which, listen, many times well-deserved, and it is there's costs involved. But, gee, for every dollar you give, only 10 cents is making it to the cause itself. But here, 90 cents is making it to the cause, and 10 cents goes to the cost of providing that. And I know you also rely on donation of items and volunteers. Is that right?
Well, that's how we can keep our costs down because, as I mentioned earlier, we engage about 2,000 volunteers a month. And those volunteers can be from 6 to 86.
Wow.
So we have a space for everyone. And you can also volunteer in the community because another piece that we need is donated product.
Yes.
So the fact that we need all of those sneakers, we need warm winter coats, we need boys' pants, always boys' pants. For some reason, boys wear through their pants faster than girls. So
here is a voice of experience.
And they wear through their sneakers, so larger size sneakers. So we collect everyday shoes and boots up to about size 11 for adults because kids are getting larger these days.
Yes.
We have plenty of clothes for little girls aged 5 and 6, but we have challenges with our babies. We will serve 30% of the children that we serve are babies. Right. And we tend to give them a lot more clothing because, as you know, babies go through clothing a little bit faster than older children. And so we're always short of babies' clothing. We're always short of baby equipment, strollers, pack and plays, safety gates, car seats, and those kinds of things. Always need books, particularly older children's books.
Yes.
And so we collect all of those items at our warehouse, and we also have 15 sites throughout the region where somebody can drop off those gently used items. And those are on our website, which is www.cradlestocrayons.org, which tells you what items we're in most immediate need of and also where you can drop them off.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I am sure that there are listeners out there who are going to do that, writing down cradlestocrayons.org so that they can find out what's needed, how to contribute products, to volunteer, and also make financial contributions.
Absolutely. I talk about our model being a four-legged stool. Mm-hmm. We need the volunteers, we need the product, we need the right balance of partners because, frankly, if we had all agencies that served babies, we'd be in trouble. We wouldn't be able to serve them well. Right. So we have to have agencies that serve those middle children and those slightly older children so that we, when we collect the product, can supply every single child that we want to supply. But finally, the last leg is that financial support. Yes. And we truly always need that as well.
So if people go to cradlescrayons.org, they will find a place where they can make that contribution?
Absolutely. Again, www.cradlestocrayons.org, and there's a lovely bright donate button on that first page.
Okay, you're telling me you can't miss it, right?
Yes. Okay,
excellent. Now, let me ask you, how did you get involved in this? Because you're the executive director, and you have a very interesting background. You're well educated, but in applied biology from London University. How did you go from biology, studying at the London University, to being the executive director of Cradles to Crayons here in Philadelphia?
Well, it was an even more windy route than just starting with applied biology. I started in retail, then I moved into computing technology.
Right.
Then I set off to sail around the world. And I got off the boat in Panama and was too embarrassed to admit to my friends in England that I hadn't gone the whole way round. So I ended up in Philadelphia instead.
From Panama to Philadelphia.
From Panama to Philadelphia. And started a business here in computing technology, which morphed into providing printmaking services for artists.
Yeah, I was reading that actually you had one of the nation's leading large format fine art digital printmaking studios.
Yes, with branches here and in New York. And in fact, actually, my ex-partner is still running the business in Dubai now.
Oh, wonderful.
And there is a subset of it still in Philadelphia.
Oh, excellent.
But as I was running that, the opportunity came up to move into nonprofits full-time with the Print Center, a small nonprofit in Philadelphia that supports printmaking and photography. and the promotion of that. And it felt to me like it was as though it was a wider arena in which to play. And I've always had an affection for nonprofits. And so I jumped ship from the for-profit world to the nonprofit world.
Okay. And then how did you end up with Cradles to Crayons?
Well, as an executive director, I suddenly realized that you actually need to raise money. And you need to learn how to raise money. And so I was at the Print Center for 2 years before a development job came up in educational enrichment, which is where I first realized the need amongst children in our region. It operated in 8 school districts in southeastern Pennsylvania. And I call it my boot camp for development.
Right.
And in that process, I saw Cradles to Crayons come to Philadelphia in 2002.
Oh, okay.
And this unique combination of supply chain logistics, of getting product into a warehouse efficiently and managing it.
Yes.
And the nonprofit side of funding that was so attractive to someone with this sort of mixed background because it provided an opportunity to use both. And so I was excited. I applied to this organization twice before they finally accepted me as their executive director.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so here you are in Philadelphia, executive director of Cradles to Crayons, a wonderful organization doing so much good in our city. What has been the most rewarding part of your experience so far?
I think it's the stories about the children. The stories about 2 sisters who were going to school only occasionally, and we discovered when we spoke to the teacher that, in fact, the reason one child was going one day and another child was going the next day is that they were sharing one winter coat between them.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
The story of 2 children in a swimming pool who were left at the end of the day with just their swimming costumes and a towel, and nobody came and picked them up. And how we can make a difference to those.
Oh, yes. Those are heartbreaking stories, and they are true. You know, you can't make that kind of stuff up. 2 kids sharing one winter coat, 2 kids left behind with just the swimming clothes and one towel. Sadly, it is true. And we never know who these kids are. One could be the next Einstein, the next Mozart, the next one to invent a medical device or to create a wonderful piece of art. If only there was the opportunity to invest in them and for them to discover exactly who they are and to be positive, and how great for our society and our community. And it would help us to be competitive in the very most positive sense of that word, competitive in the sense of putting the best we have forward. And so, unfortunately, because of poverty and sometimes lack of resources and unfortunately good parenting, many of our best contributors end up being not contributors but even detractors. What's been the impact of this work so far here in Philadelphia?
Well, I think the other piece that I wanted to just go back to, you're talking about the impact on children that receive the goods.
Yes.
But I think there's another impact, and that's where we're changing the community, is the fact that we engage children as young as 6 in volunteering to help other children.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And you see the light bulb go off.
Yes.
We had a little boy who came in just recently. He worked for 2 hours. He's on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
And he went home with his mom, and he said, that was powerful. She didn't even know that he knew the word because he had some learning challenges. He went home, took a pair of Nikes that he had just got from his mother. He'd been nagging his mother for months about these Nikes, just got them, and he handed them to his mother and he said, can you give them to Cradles to Crayons?
Oh, that's wonderful.
I need them, or I want them, but there are kids that need them more. And so he then sorted through his clothing in his cupboards, and the next time she came to Cradles to Crayons, brought those sneakers and lots of bags of his clothing. And I think that factor, that it changes kids for the long term. And it's been proven that it not only changes the single child who comes to our warehouse, but it's the siblings as well. They tend to become much more philanthropic and community-minded through experiencing this kind of tangible philanthropy that Cradles to Crayons provides for families and corporations, and schools and Girl Scout groups and all kinds of other people that can help us.
Yeah, and I think what you just talked about is so important for our listeners to understand. As one of my friends says, that's when 1 + 1 makes 3. It's not just doing well for yourself. it's actually doing well. And part of it, what that little boy learned, was how to grow as a person and to help another child. And in that, he becomes a more capable, competent person and contributor. And really, I do believe that that's how he and the other child will be competitive in this global economy. Basically, in our last few seconds here, let me ask you: are there any important projects or things coming up, or anything you want our listeners to know about before we end today's show?
I think it would be lovely if we had a special event, but in fact, I think the sad thing about what we do is that we need service and help every single day of the year in order to provide children with the everyday essentials that they need to thrive. So it's not just something special, it's something everyday and routine that we need help with.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. And listen, everybody, stay tuned for our show next week. Not stay tuned, but join us next week for In the Know with David O.
You've been listening to In the Know with David O on 860 AM WWDB. Tune in again next Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more informative, substantive, intelligent talk radio with Philadelphia Councilman David O.